Having covered Snyder's 2004 remake of Dawn of the Dead quite often on my channel, I've been exposed to many arguments from fans of the film which posit that staying at the mall was the best decision the survivors could have made. Aside from choosing to stay at the mall because it would be the best way to die peacefully, which by the way is a fairly valid position to hold, many members of the movie's fandom genuinely believe that the mall was some magical, super prepping doom bunker fortress. Now, there really is no doubt in my mind that this silly idea was really propagated by the GOAT himself, Wow Such Gaming, but fact of the matter is, the mall was not sustainable in the long run. And I honestly feel this ought to be an obvious logical deduction. But clearly it isn't. As such, I've decided to focus this video essay on systematically deconstructing the arguments in favor for staying at the mall. That way we can finally end this ridiculous line of argumentation once and for all. Now, before we dive into this debunk, allow me to first ask y'all for a very quick favor. Most of you watching aren't actually subscribed. Now, if you're enjoying the content, hitting that subscribe and like button really helps the channel to grow. And it also helps me to continue entertaining you. So, with that quick, cliche, and shameless plug out of the way, let's go ahead and get the ball rolling on this analysis by first covering the many reasons I've given for vacating the mall in my past videos and comments. And then, once I'm done explaining the most obvious reasons for why staying at the mall isn't smart, I'll debunk some of the other common arguments in favor of staying at the mall. I'd also be remiss if I didn't begin with the following caveat, being that staying at the mall to die peacefully is the only really valid reason to stay at the mall. So if that's your reason, this video ain't for you. With that being said, allow me to outline why staying at the mall is a fantastically stupid idea, if you really want to maximize the odds of survival for the Milwaukee crew, and in a sense for yourself. Now, the first glaring issue with staying at the mall indefinitely is the literal fact that the mall's backup generator would eventually run out of fuel and or, more importantly, break down from extended use. Which absolutely sucks because no one in the cast could realistically conduct maintenance and repairs on an industrial generator. Nor could you just learn how to service such a sophisticated piece of electrical equipment by reading a dummy's DIY book. What this ultimately means is that the Milwaukee group would eventually lose their ability to refrigerate perishable foods. Furthermore, the total depletion of fuel reserves would also mean that our cast of survivors wouldn't be able to refuel their shuttle buses from within the safety of the mall. Another glaring issue that people seemingly ignore is the fact that the Crossroads Mall did not have a grocery store or farming goods store within it, which, believe it or not, is fairly common for American malls of such a size. These folks are in Milwaukee. They're not out in Buttfuckistan. It would make zero sense from a business standpoint to open up a grocery store or, more importantly, a farming goods store in the greater Milwaukee area within an early 2000s enclosed shopping mall. Hence why we have zero indication of such a store existing within the mall in the film. Now, maybe this is a foreign concept to many people on the internet, but malls are designed to facilitate centralized leisure and luxury shopping. They are not designed to be a strip mall where you can buy essential goods. So what does that actually mean? It means that a mall like the Crossroads Mall is not going to contain essential farming goods. There ain't going to be a diverse and sizable inventory of seeds. There ain't going to be fertilizer, nor is there going to be any sustainable stockpile of quality soil. In addition to this unfortunate reality is the fact that such malls aren't teeming with non-perishable foods. Most of the food will, in fact, be quite perishable. As such, when the power goes out, most of that food will expire rather quickly, which, if you haven't gathered by now, is not good for long-term survival. Without the existence of copious amounts of dirt and an ample supply of seeds, you're not going to be able to start a rooftop farm or garden. And yes, I know what you're thinking. What about using soil from planters and seeds from existing fruits? The soil used in planters isn't exactly quality soil, nor are said planters typically filled to the brim. Furthermore, you'd never have enough pots of dirt to grow enough crops to feed 15 people and one dog. Like, don't get me wrong, the idea is truly creative, but it isn't solving the long-term problem of food scarcity. It should also be fairly self-evident that bird and rodent traps will not be enough to meet the caloric and nutritional needs of the Milwaukee group. The group could, however, hot smoke meat to preserve it for weeks and potentially months. But the longer-term, cold smoking method would not be possible at the mall, nor would the survivors know how to do such a thing. Now, all of these problems would be severely exacerbated by the onset of the Wisconsin winter, where temperatures can get below zero and where blizzards can come and go without warning, thus rendering the roads impossible to traverse with most vehicles. Any crops grown will die during the winter, unless you can figure out how to grow them indoors without UV equipment. Birds won't be plentiful, and rodents might also be in scarce supply during the winter season, assuming that you want to risk eating rodents in the first place. Melting snow and then purifying said water would also make it tedious to meet hydration needs. A cold as fuck garage could also cause engine problems for the shuttle buses, if the group ever wanted to use them. Speaking of the shuttle buses, keep in mind the only way to get them out of said garage is to open the garage doors, a process which would not be fast but rather slow, especially when the power goes out. If the undead aren't frozen, doing such a thing would compromise the safety of the mall, as the undead would, without a doubt, spill into the mall like an unstoppable wave of death and destruction. Oh, and let's just go ahead and talk about the undead themselves for just a minute. As far as we know, the outbreak begins on May 6th, 2004, something we can easily confirm by viewing Andy's lost tape. You know, that really cool part of the DVD bonus content? The group leaves the mall on June 6th, and the undead are still outside, besieging the mall, showing zero signs of ever slowing down. If they were decomposing, as expected by the laws of physics, they would have all been immobile, essentially being functionally decomposed, by day 11 or May 17th. Clearly, just staying put and expecting the Milwaukee crew to outlast the zombie horde is not a tenable position to hold. And the longer they stay, the larger the horde outside the mall will grow. I mean, just look at the difference over time.
What are they?
I don't know. Why are they coming here?
Memory, maybe? Instinct?
Now, you could argue that they might freeze during the winter, but we have no reason to make that assumption. As a matter of fact, Occam's razor actually favors the idea that the undead wouldn't freeze. Allow me to explain. Occam's razor tells us that the best explanation is usually the one which makes the fewest new assumptions. We already know that these zombies don't respond to extreme heat the way humans or corpses normally do. They walk around just fine in the summer sun, ignoring decomposition timelines, and they don't react to fire unless it's hot enough to destroy their brains outright.
Check this out. Let's just see. Okay, so I tossed the fucking Molotov. Not good. And for one thing, it don't do shit. It just burns for a while and leaves them all grilled and smelling like Jimmy Dean, and now I'm really fucking hungry.
So if we were to suddenly assume that they do freeze in the cold, despite no consistent evidence across films, games, or books, we'd be introducing a new and unnecessary assumption. Arguing that they'll freeze because zombies in The Walking Dead, and even in the World War Z novel freeze, isn't a grounded hypothesis. It's cherry picking, especially when we've seen plenty of examples where zombies don't freeze in cold temperatures across the zombie genre. So if the simplest, most consistent explanation is that they resist environmental extremes, both hot and cold, that's what Occam's razor would lean towards. Assuming they'd turn into popsicles without direct evidence? That's not objective thinking. It's baseless speculation. Remember guys, we're talking about undead zombies. Undead zombies are literally impossible. Stop relying on the decomposition and freezing argument, okay? We're talking about fiction here. Okay, that's like saying Omni-Man can't travel faster than light in space because nothing can travel faster than light in space. Dude, we're talking about fiction, okay? Your arguments really need to be internally consistent with the universe of Dawn of the Dead for them to make any sense. Cool story, Gold. They could have just killed all the undead. Here's a news flash for you. Andy literally tried that.
Okay, so, come here. Okay, sniping's out. I was up on the roof for like an hour. I must have lost 200, no more, like 300 rounds. Every time you hit one of them, two more show up. It's like that Hobbit dragon thing, you know, where you cut off one head and two more grow back. It's an exercise in fertility.
But let's go ahead and ignore that tidbit of information and just assume that Andy had enough ammunition to clear the entire greater Milwaukee area. Here's a fun fact for you. If you kill enough zombies, you will most definitely risk their bodies piling up. This can lead to the walls of the mall being scaled. Now, even if the walls aren't scaled, this presents the Milwaukee crew with several health hazards. Like, for example, how would you dispose of the bodies? It's a big health hazard to burn them. Plus, the smokestack would attract more zombies along with the smell of burnt flesh. Andy's gun store also wasn't very large, at least by American standards. In all likelihood, he doesn't have enough ammunition to clear the entire population of Milwaukee. And every single gunshot will attract all of the undead within a few square miles, including wandering hordes that may have migrated from nearby municipalities. Oh, and by the way, your next line is, "But what about spears, Captain Gold?" But what about spears, Captain Gold? The zombies in Snyder's Dawn of the Dead were smart enough to climb and hold doors open. Using a long as fuck spear to poke at their heads would not only be extremely difficult, but it would also pose a few risks. Like, for example, the undead grabbing the spear and pulling you down. Skulls are also pretty thick. Your makeshift spear might eventually get embedded in the skull of a zombie. And don't even think about using fire, as that could easily compromise the integrity of the mall's very structure. But what about forming an interior kill zone inside the mall? Same problems, but only worse because it's fucking inside. Speaking of killing shit, the mall is just too large to defend from potentially desperate and hostile survivors. Which, interestingly enough, is something we actually see occur in the original Romero film that this movie is based on. I've also seen viewers comment that the sewers could be used to conduct supply runs, but clearly they didn't watch the movie. The sewers would be a one-use method of travel, before a horde occupies that subterranean tunnel system. Others have argued that because unknown survivors recovered Andy's lost tape, that clearly staying at the mall would have been smart. Clearly humanity survives this apocalypse within the lore of the Dawn of the Dead Snyderverse. But we're never told when Andy's footage is recovered. It could have easily been recovered years after the events of the movie. Believe it or not, a tape recording within an abandoned structure could easily survive many years before becoming unplayable. So suffice it to say, this is not an intelligent argument whatsoever. Hell, I've even seen one viewer explain that the survivors could have used the box truck to conduct supply runs. Yeah, let's go ahead and use an unarmored truck to conduct supply runs. In a major city infested with super sprinting zombies that can crack a windshield with one serious punch. Also, how the fuck are you refueling that thing in a safe manner? You could probably use the truck to draw zombies away from the mall, but the person driving the truck would eventually have to come back. Unless it's a suicide mission of some sort. And unfortunately, nothing's really stopping the undead from eventually wandering back to the area. Fact of the matter is, the only real intelligent option is to leave the damn mall sooner rather than later, while taking full advantage of the mall's treasure trove of supplies to help you survive elsewhere. This is something I've talked about in my most recent Dawn of the Dead video, so if you haven't done so, check that video out next. All things being considered, I think it's fairly safe to conclude that staying at the mall is not a smart idea. Anyways, if you like this sort of content, please like, share, and subscribe. Click the damn bell as well if you'd like to be notified when I publish a new video. And remember that you may opine anytime if you feel so inclined down in the comments section. I'm Captain Gold and hope to see you in my next Gold Standard video.